Right here and right now, life is so good for so many of us. We have a thriving business community. Our nonprofits are partnering in new and innovative ways. You take all of those positive stats that we had an opportunity to see just a moment ago, and you place that on top of a community whose culture is about giving back, paying forward, and providing a hand up instead of a handout. Most of us in this room have an opportunity when our economy thrives to expand our business, further our careers, maybe move to a new neighborhood, provide additional resources for our children. And yet, every day, because of my position at United Way, I have an opportunity to talk to nonprofit leaders from across the spectrum. At present, United Way invests in over 84 nonprofits, and all of them tell me, and all of them ask me this: Sher, will you and United Way please help raise the awareness that we have an issue of poverty right here in this community? United Way, will you please help us get out this message? And you know what? They're right. Right here and right now, we do have an issue of poverty in this community. 28,000 individuals, families, are living in poverty. Now, for those of you that may not know, poverty means that a family of four is living on an annual income of less than $23,550 a year. So what does 28,000 in this community look like? I want you to take a minute right now. Look around this room and look around your tables. Most of you are seated at a table of between either 8 or 9 individuals. So one of you represents an individual living in poverty, because 28,000 people in this community equates to 1 in 8 individuals. Furthermore, we know that 6,000 children in our community are living in poverty. So what does that mean when we say that a family of 4 is living in poverty? Well, let's take one issue that affects most of us with children: childcare. The average cost for childcare in this community is $8,000 a year. What's the likelihood that a family that's living in poverty is going to be able to pay $8,000 a year? That's a third of their income. But stay with me for a minute. Let's say that they can. Let's say that they can come up with that $8,000. What's the likelihood that they're going to find childcare available for them? We know from Child Care Resource and Referral that we have a shortage of 18,000 childcare slots in this community. But let's just say that they can come up with 8,000. Let's just say that they can come up with a slot. Most of these families living in poverty are not working a traditional 8 to 5 Monday to Friday job. So now what's the likelihood that they're going to be able to come up with 8,000 and an available slot that's offering non-traditional hours? Our nonprofit leaders are right. We do have poverty here, and the cycle of poverty is hard to break. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see those stats paired together, all the good things that are happening and all of these challenges that we have, I literally shake my head. How can this be happening? How can this be the same community? And you know what? It is. It's happening right here in one community. It's happening in our community. And some of you may be wondering, well, what are we going to do about it? And here's the good news. United Way has a plan. We have a plan. We are going to work with our business leaders. We are going to work with our educators. We are going to work with our nonprofits and individuals and the public sector. And we are going to begin to slow the cycle of poverty right here in this community. Now, don't misunderstand. This is not going to be easy. And it certainly won't be quick. But we know that when we focus our efforts and our investments together, it can and will happen in this community. We know that we cannot do this work alone. So today you're going to hear from individuals and organizations that are planning to be the one for someone in our community. You're going to hear from community leaders such as Jim Garten, president of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. And you're going to hear from Dr. Jeff Schatz, superintendent for the Fargo Public Schools. And you're going to hear from this year's chair, Jeff Thomas. Senior Vice President of Cornerstone Bank. And they are going to tell you about our comprehensive approach in a new way of working. And they're also going to tell you about stories, lots and lots of stories. So you may be wondering, United Way, why education? Well, this is not necessarily new for us. We have been investing in educational programs for well over a decade. Show of hands and keep them raised. How many of you are familiar with Imagination Library? Gearing Up for Kindergarten, Keys to Kindergarten, School Supply Drive, the Backpack Program. Many of you, right? And you know what? These are great programs. These are really good investments. But if we're truly going to do something about the cycle of poverty in this community, we recognized we needed to do more. We needed to come up with a comprehensive approach. And in the meantime, we're going to make sure to continue to invest in programs that United Way calls basic needs programs. We're going to continue to invest in our homeless shelters, our transitional housing programs, our food programs, and programs that protect vulnerable individuals and keep us safe. Now, we decided to start this work about a year ago. So in December of 2012, we brought together all of our educators and the nonprofits that work with youth in this community, our students. And we asked them this one question: if we want to slow the academic achievement gap in this community, what would it take? What would we need to do? And so over the course of about 10 months, we began working together, listening and learning from one another. And we came up with 4 focus areas that were crucial if we wanted to close the academic achievement gap. And we also came up with shared metrics and measurements so that we could measure our program effectiveness. We could measure our investments. And in August of this year, the United Way Board of Trustees approved a $1.4 million annual investment in this new comprehensive approach created and designed by the nonprofits and the educators together for our community's kids. Now, I would love to tell you about all 25 programs, but honestly, we just don't have the time. So I want to tell you about 2 of them. The first one is the Incredible Years program. And the Incredible Years program works with students from a mental health perspective and a skills training perspective. And here's the great thing about it. When we were going through this process over this last year, listening to our educators, one of them said to us, "Sher, if we only had a chance to teach them." You see, so many of today's kids are coming into the classroom with issues that they're trying to navigate, that the teachers are having challenges teaching them. Do you know what the Incredible Years program does? It has reduced expulsions for children that have participated in their program by 56%. So now we know that children that are getting these services are going to quality daycares. They're showing up in schools. Teachers are having the opportunity to teach them because they're in the classroom. I also want to tell you about another program. It's a new program for us this year. It's the North Dakota Reading Recovery Program. Now, this is a nationally proven reading recovery program, and you know what? That's great. But that is not why we're investing in it. We are investing in it because equally important to getting the kids ready to start their educational journey, doing that pre-K readiness piece, and making sure that they're there and in the classrooms, we need to make sure that they're hitting their educational mile markers along the way. And one of them is reading at 3rd grade. So children that are not reading proficiently at grade level go into this program. And you know what? When they come out of that program, 89% of them are reading at grade level. In fact, so many of them make such great strides beyond their peers, sometimes 2 and 3 times beyond their peers' growth. We're investing in these programs because they work. Now, we know that this is a great first step. But our next presenter is going to talk to you about the follow-on steps, because this is a comprehensive approach. This is not just about getting them into school ready to learn. It's making sure that we're working with them and programs along the continuum, getting them to high school graduation, and then the right post-secondary education. Jim Garton is the president of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, and his team, like our team, at United Way, believes that today's students are tomorrow's workforce. And if we want to see this community continue to thrive and businesses continue to grow, we need to make sure that everyone is at the table today. Our educators, our business leaders, and our nonprofits, making sure that we can focus on continued growth. Today, I stand before you and I share with you that I'm going to be the one to advocate for our nonprofits and all those they serve. And I'm going to be the one to make sure to create community awareness around individuals, families, and children living in poverty in our community. How do you plan to be the one?